On Baldur's Gate 3's official launch, we can expect to see most, if not all, of the subclasses that are present in the D&D 5th edition Player's Handbook. I've already covered this in a previous video, but is that good enough? Well, it might be, but there are many other subclasses that have been released in other D&D books over the years, and some of them are pretty awesome to say the least. So in today's video, I'm going to go over some of the more non-conventional D&D subclasses that could possibly end up making it into the game. Make sure to comment below letting everyone know the subclass or subclasses that you really want in the game, and then thumbs up some other comments so we can get a really good idea as to where everyone stands. Keep in mind that I'm only mentioning a few subclasses in this video. These are the ones that I think might stand the best chance of actually making it into Baldur's Gate 3. If you end up enjoying this video, please subscribe. There will be much more Baldur's Gate 3 content on the way. Links to my Twitter and my Discord server will be below. Let's get right into it. There's no better way to start off this video than with an evil dragonborn paladin named Archon the Cruel. Archon the Cruel was a critical role character played by Joe Manganiello, and this character falls into a subclass of the paladin called the Oathbreaker. The Oathbreaker subclass is featured in the Dungeon Master's Guide D&D book, which is one of the 3 books that we know for certain that Larian Studios is referencing for Baldur's Gate 3. Also, considering that Archon the Cruel became part of D&D canon as a character in the adventure module Descent into Avernus, which is in many ways a prologue of events to Baldur's Gate 3, I'd say that this subclass might have a decent chance of actually making it into the game. The Oathbreaker Paladin is exactly what you think it is, a paladin that breaks his or her sacred oath to pursue some dark ambition or serve an evil power. The light that used to burn in a paladin's heart has been extinguished, and only darkness remains. We have already seen in Baldur's Gate 3's early access, at least in its current state, that you can choose between many different deities, good and evil, when playing as another faith-filled class, like the Cleric. And with the presence of many evil gods seemingly playing very important roles in the plot of the game, this could be another indicator of the Oathbreaker coming into our lives. When a paladin reaches level 3, this is when they officially swear the sacred oath that binds them. In other words, your subclass choice, and they can become an Oathbreaker. An Oathbreaker will lose previously gained oath spells, and instead gain the following spells at corresponding levels. Hellish Rebuke, which shoots fire out of your hands as a reaction. Inflict Wounds. Crown of Madness, which makes a twisted crown of jagged iron appear on an enemy's head, driving them mad. Darkness. Animate Dead. Bestow Curse. And the rest we're not really sure if the game will make it to those levels. All paladins, regardless of subclass, get Channel Divinity at level 3, which is a special divine ability a paladin can use once per short or long rest. Oathbreaker specifically will gain the following Channel Divinity options: Control Undead, which allows an Oathbreaker to target one undead creature that must obey their commands, and also the option of Dreadful Aspect, which is an AoE Frighten ability. At level 7, an Oathbreaker will get Aura of Hate, which gives themselves, any friends, and undead within 10 feet a bonus to melee weapon damage. And at level 15, Oathbreakers get a tanky subclass feature that gives them resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons, but level 15 is pushing it for the initial launch of Baldur's Gate 3. It only makes sense to now talk about the villainous subclass of the Cleric, the Death Domain Cleric. Like the Oathbreaker, the Death Domain is also featured in the Dungeon Master's Guidebook, and considering that we can already choose death deities such as Merkel in character creation, this subclass may be on the horizon. The Death Domain Cleric is more concerned with the forces that cause death, as well as the negative energy that gives rise to undead creatures. All clerics will choose their divine domain, or subclass if you will, right away at level 1, and they receive domain-specific spells that are prepared at all times. The Death Cleric will gain the following at corresponding levels: False Life, which gives temporary hit points; Ray of Sickness, which deals poison damage; Blindness; Ray of Enfeeblement, which is a debuff; Animate Dead; Vampiric Touch, which deals necrotic damage and heals you; Blight; Death Ward, which you can cast on a friendly, giving them a measure of protection from death. Anti-Life Shell, which provides a barrier, and Cloud Kill, which creates a moving sphere of poisonous fog. Death Clerics will also gain martial weapon proficiency at level 1 and get a subclass feature called Reaper. Rapier gives them one necromancy cantrip of their choice and allows the casting of that necrotic cantrip to target 2 creatures that are within 5 feet of each other. Clerics, like Paladins, also get Channel Divinity, but they get it at level 2. Death Cleric's Channel Divinity is called Touch of Death and is dealt with a melee attack, dealing extra necrotic damage to the target. At level 6, Death Cleric's use of necrotic damage will now ignore necrotic resistance that an opponent might have, making spells of this type useful in more situations. And at level 8, they get Divine Strike, which infuses a cleric's weapon with necrotic damage. This can be applied once on each of the cleric's turns. This essentially buffs a cleric's melee weapon attacks, making them more on level to some of their cantrips. Keep in mind that with these subclasses, you're still going to receive all of the base class features that your chosen class receives. I'm not going over those in this video. Next up is a very popular subclass from a very popular class, the Hexblade Warlock. The popularity of this subclass and how it truly makes the Warlock unique from other subclasses makes me think that this is also one of the more likely non-conventional subclasses to possibly grace us with its presence. Hexblade Warlocks make a pact with a mysterious entity from the Shadowfell plane, which we did get to see briefly in the Baldur's Gate 3 opening cinematic. This mysterious force manifests itself in sentient magic weapons carved from the stuff of shadow. At level 1, you will get proficiency with martial weapons, shields, and medium armor. And most importantly, when you take a long rest now, you will choose a weapon of yours that you want your charisma modifier to be added to its attack and damage rolls. You are becoming a Warlock Warrior. Two-handed weapons cannot be chosen for this until you reach level 3 and choose the Pact of the Blade as your pact boon. Hexblades get an expanded list of spells to choose from, which will add the following spells to the Warlock spell list. Shield, a very useful reaction spell that increases your AC for a round. Wrathful Smite, which adds psychic damage to a melee weapon attack and also can frighten enemies. Blur, Branding Smite, which adds radiant damage to your melee attack. Blink, Elemental Weapon. Phantasmal Killer, which deals psychic damage and frightens enemies. Staggering Smite, Banishing Smite, and Cone of Cold, which is a massive AoE cold damage spell. Also at level 1, a Hexblade gets Hexblade's Curse, which will allow you to place a curse on someone, giving you a bonus to damage rolls against them. You will now get a critical hit with a roll of 19 as well as 20 on your attack roll, and if the cursed target dies, you will regain some hit points. At level 6, you'll get a subclass feature called Accursed Spectre, which is another curse, but this time on the soul of a humanoid that you slay. This will cause the slain humanoid spirit to rise from its corpse as a specter, and it's temporarily bound to your service. This specter will roll its own initiative and have its own turns, and it will remain in your service until the end of your next long rest. Level 10 will give you a buff to your Hexblade's Curse, and it's called Armor of Hexes. If your cursed target hits you with an attack roll, the game should roll a d6 behind the scenes, and if you get a 4 or higher, their attack will miss instead. And at level 14, you will now be able to spread your Hexblade's Curse from a slain creature to another, but you will not regain hit points from the death of the previous creature in this case. I'm not going to go over this in detail, but I will quickly mention that Celestial Warlock could also become a subclass choice. Celestial Warlocks have patrons from the upper planes, giving them some healing capabilities and radiant type spells. It would be an interesting addition to Baldur's Gate 3. And the last subclass I'm going to mention for this video is a really cool one and certainly made the Ranger class more popular in D&D when it came out, and that is the Gloom Stalker. When the Ranger class initially came out in 5th edition, the common analysis of the class seemed to be that it was a bit underwhelming. The addition of the Gloom Stalker helped change this a little. Larian Studios is already going about their own revisions to the Ranger class from what we can see in early access, so adding in the Gloom Stalker might be a viable option in the future as well. Gloom Stalkers are rangers that are at home in the darkest of places. from dark alleyways to primeval forests to the Underdark itself. Places where most folks see trepidation, but Gloomstalkers see advantage. At level 3, which is when a ranger chooses its subclass, if you choose Gloomstalker, you will now be able to learn an extra spell at levels 3, 5, 9, 13, and 17. These spells include Disguise Self, which may come in handy when we finally reach the city of Baldur's Gate. Rope Trick, which basically creates an extra dimensional space capable of hiding multiple creatures. Fear, which frightens enemies, and Greater Invisibility. Level 3 will give the Gloomstalker a subclass feature called Dread Ambusher, giving them a bonus to their initiative rolls, increasing their movement speed by 10 feet for the first round of combat. They get to make one additional weapon attack if they use the attack action on this turn. And if that additional attack hits, it deals an additional 1d8 damage. This feature is the ultimate ambush feature, making the ranger very rogue assassin-like. Level 3 will also increase a Gloomstalker's dark vision range and make them adept at evading creatures that rely on dark vision by making them invisible when in darkness. At level 7, a Gloomstalker gets Iron Mind, giving them proficiency in wisdom saving throws. Level 10, they get Stalker's Fury, which allows them to turn a missed attack into another strike once per turn. Very powerful. And at level 15, they get a feature called Shadow Dodge, which lets a Gloomstalker impose disadvantage on an opponent's attack roll if the opponent doesn't have advantage to begin with. This is a dark, gloomy assassin type ranger. A really cool idea for a subclass, and it would fit Baldur's Gate 3 very well, especially considering that we spend so much time in the Underdark. Once again, keep in mind that I only went over subclass features for these classes, and didn't talk about the base class features that each class gets no matter what. Also keep in mind that there are many more subclasses in D&D 5e, but those are some of the ones that I think are particularly interesting and would certainly fit in Baldur's Gate 3. And that will be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It's a huge help to my videos. I do all sorts of content on this channel, ranging from live streams to game reviews to game tutorials to class guides to lore videos and much more. I'd love to have some of you guys back for a future video. Until next time.